All right, welcome back to the EVE Online Alliance Tournament. We're about to watch Razor Alliance versus Babylon 5. Razor Alliance, well, first of all, a lot of people had issues warping to our arena, which seems to be a common theme, so there's a few things going on that are funny. There's one of the bombers for Babylon 5 sitting at 0 on the beacon. He had to be moved there as a penalty, and the same, we assume, goes for the Guardian on Razor side,
Yes,
who's
in
also
local
at 0.
they're talking about it. So
Okay.
it is a movement to 0. That Guardian does not want to be at 0. It could hurt. I mean,
I think it seems like a fine bait ship, though. I don't know. I think
you got all the webs from Loki. So what we have on the field here, Babylon 5 ... has brought 3 Lokis, an Eos, a Neros, 3 Hounds, and 2 Ishkers. Only 10 pilots, which I'm not a big fan of, but a lot of webs, a lot of long-range webs, because those Lokis all have the web subsystem. So
and the last pre-match detail, the Razor Armageddon is their flagship.
Yes, yes,
We have
that
to
is a very
mention
good point. So the Guardian, the match has started. The Guardian for Razor is running away. I don't see a web on him yet, so if he can avoid that, he'll be in good shape. They're webbing everyone else and not him, so he's fine. He doesn't care anymore.
No big deal.
But yes, Razor has brought that flagship Armageddon, Guardian Prophecy, and then a bunch of Tech 1 cruisers, Vexers, Thorax, Ruptures, and some Enyos. It's a lot of damage.
Looks like that Hound maybe did not get out so lucky. There is one Hound webbed, although he's tanking for now, so maybe no big deal. Interesting setup for sure coming from Babylon 5. They're a little low on damage to me, it looks like. They have the bombers, of course, but Loki's as their main base is not a very high damage thing, but a lot of utility. The webs give them a lot of control over the field, although one Hound already down for Babylon 5, and the E-War stacked up like crazy on that Babylon 5 team.
Are going to be under a huge amount of pressure from the newts from that Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
That Armageddon's probably going to have 40-kilometer newts, 50-kilometer newts, because the Armageddon does have a bonus to neutralizer and NOS range, so he can remove the energy from a ship from very long ranges. And because he's a flagship, he can use very high-value items to make that get even longer. So he is going to be able to just basically, anytime these Lokis can do anything, they're going to be neuted, which is not going to be good for them. That'll turn off their engines, basically prevent them from moving fast. It'll also turn off those webs that slow down the other team.
A Loki already at about half armor. The Nero starting to take damage as well. He's webbed by the Razor team, and all Babylon 5's been able to do is kill one Enyo so far. They're starting to get into armor on one of these Ruptures, but not looking good so far for them. They really need to do more damage quicker to have a chance here, I think.
Yeah, you're seeing the strength of the Lokis and how fast that Rupture is going. He's only going 28 meters a second because he's got the long-range webs from these Lokis on him. However, they still can't kill him. They've slowed him down, but he's just sitting there, and he's...
You said how fast he was going. I thought you meant how fast he was dying. And I was like, yeah, not so strong.
No.
And speaking of which, there goes Loki number 1. So only 2 left on Babylon 5 side, and that Rupture's still hanging in there, even though he's, clearly been their focus for a while now. He's tanking just fine.
Yeah, I mean, this Loki's base setup is interesting. Combined with the EOS, it's probably very strong against ECM. But we haven't seen ECM yet in a big way in this tournament, so maybe they're expecting that from Razor Alliance for some reason, but that's obviously not what Razor brought. It's just not going to be doing the job against these Razor Alliance Tech 1 cruisers and that flagship Armageddon. So this is the second time we've seen a flagship fielded so far this tournament. One was fielded by Scum in our first match. One is now fielded by Razor Alliance, and this one will probably survive, unlike the Scum one. The way flagships work is every team is allowed to have one battleship. It can be a Tech 1 battleship, or it can be a faction battleship. And that ship can break some of our normal rules about the value of modules you can fit to it. It can fit modules in the high slots, like guns and neutralizers and smart bombs, that are very, very high value, very powerful. It can fit E-War modules, including webs, that are also the same thing.
Loki number 2 down.
Damage modules, too. Can't have a gigantic tank, but really it's just a very powerful utility set of ships. But once you lose your flagship, you can't bring it again. And you have to declare what type of flagship you are going to be using before the tournament, and everyone knows it. So there's a list published on our website or on the forums that list what everyone's flagship is. Both the flagships fielded so far have been Armageddons. What do you think about that? You just actually rebalanced Armageddons in Odyssey, CSP Rise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think for flagships, you definitely want to take advantage of a ship that can capitalize on using the extra modules, on sort of scaling off the advantages they offer, like extra range, which is why ships like Vindicators and Balgorns have been powerful in the past, because they can really exploit the mods that you get access to, whether that's webs or newts or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Ships dying on the Babylon 5 side. They're down to only 1 Loki now. They just lost 2 bombers. Their logistics is about to drop as well. They're really just falling apart, and they were never able to bring that Rupture down. One other feature of the flagship rule that you didn't mention is that flagships this year, as we'll have banning going into the next couple weekends, flagships get to ignore bans. So it gives you a very interesting strategic option in terms of setups going into fights. You have some control over what's happening regardless of what your opponent decides to ban.
Which provides an interesting option for these guys. Like, if they bring the flagship now, they risk not being able to take advantage of that. Because we don't have banning in this weekend. That's going to start off next Saturday. And so if you lose the flagship this weekend, you just don't get to use that very powerful tool for them. Scum lost theirs, so they're not going to be able to bring another one for the whole rest of the tournament. Razor brought theirs, but it's alive, so they can keep bringing it back as much as they want until it dies.
All right, last Frigg about to drop for Babylon 5. This Ishkur crazy graph is dead, which leaves, as usual, the Link ship for last. That EOS will have a decent armor tank, but obviously he cannot fight against the 11 remaining ships for Razor Alliance.
Lots of damage from those Tech 1 cruisers. He's still going to go down pretty fast.
So far, a really good showing for Tech 1 cruisers.
Yeah.
They seem
Tech 1
like
cruisers were all recently changed in our Retribution expansion, the expansion before last. This is the first Alliance tournament we've had since that happened. So it's good to see people taking advantage of the new meta.
Yep, and another cool thing this shows is that whether you're a new pilot or an old pilot, any of you have access to powerful ships.
Yeah,
I mean,
these ships are very inexpensive. You can get in them after playing the game for like maybe 3 or 4 days, and you can be into a ship like this. You can be into them very effectively within a week or two, and at that point, you're like very close to being equal with even the best pilots in that ship.
Yep. So that is the last ship down for Babylon 5. A very clean win for Razor Alliance against a kind of unorthodox setup for Babylon 5. A good match. We have Sicarius Draconis first. Test, please ignore coming up next. That should be fun because Test always is fun to watch. See you guys then.